You're listening to the mother of all talk shows with me, George Galloway, on WBAI, serving New York and the tri-state area.
People of America, this is the President of the United States. You are listening to George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows. George is a Scotsman, unlike me, an Irishman. Enjoy.
Well, he may not be an Irishman, but at least now we know what he really thinks of Benjamin Netanyahu. President Sarkozy, captured on a microphone that he didn't know was live in Cannes in the south of France at the G20 meeting last week, said, "I can't look at Netanyahu anymore. I just can't look at his face. He's a liar." President Obama answered, "You can't stand him. I have to deal with him every day." So now we know what the world leaders think of the Israeli Prime Minister. Exactly what they would have denounced me for saying here on the mother of all talk shows. But the question is, and I'm posing it to you now, if Mr. Obama and Mr. Sarkozy et al. Really think the same as me about the Israeli leader, how come they continue to bend the world to suit Israel's interests? And what about the Occupy movement? I don't know how it's going and spreading in the United States, but it's the biggest show in town in London at the St. Paul's Cathedral, where 300 people have got the mass media and public attention right in the palm of their hand. Last week on my television show, I interviewed a man who was one of the organizers of the outstanding, stupendously successful Occupy Oakland, California, which closed the port, the seventh biggest port in the United States of America, because the longshoremen wouldn't cross their picket line of 15,000 demonstrators. So how's it going in Wall Street? How's it going in the United States? Is it making capitalism pay? Is it making any difference? Do they have any clear idea about what they want to replace the status quo with? That's one of the questions that I'm asking today. 212-209-2900. That's the number to call, the mother of all talk shows. And, of course, there are many other events going on in the United States and in the world, and you can call up on any of those. 212-209-2900. And if you want to follow me on Twitter or on Facebook, you can do that. Just type in my name. Go to Facebook. George Galloway MP is the name of the page, because I was an MP when I started the page, and now about 125,000 people are following my every word on Twitter and Facebook and responding with words of their own. So you can do that too. 212-209-2900. That's the number to call. And when you do, you'll get through to the indefatigable, redoubtable Aoife, without whom there wouldn't be a show at all. She handles everything. I just do the talking. Aoife, thanks as much as ever for everything you do. Do we have any calls on the line already?
Yes, the callers just started coming through, so I didn't get this caller's name.
Okay,
so he's
just
on
put
right
them
now.
through then. Yeah. Yes, good morning, caller. What's your name?
Martin Broad.
Thanks very much. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, as far as being specific about what we think could get this country back on the right road, I've been going down to the Zuccotti Square and have a number of posters, but one of them said that Obama, corporate fraud is a crime, punishment must be jail time, not a cost of doing business fine, and a campaign contribution. And I think that's something he doesn't need the Republicans to negotiate as far as getting the Justice Department active, because there was an article in the New York Times just yesterday saying that these SEC fines are always settled without guilt.
Yeah, exactly.
And exactly a cost of business, and with the condition that they don't repeat them. But they've been repeating them over and over again, and the head of the SEC seemed to say, well, it's a deterrent. Now, is that what this country's all about?
Well, it's not a deterrent. I mean, the fines are peanuts compared to the extent of the corporate fraud. There was an old saw that's got whispers on it, that if you want to make money, don't open a bank. And these people knew that, and they set themselves up in the casino economy in Wall Street,
George?
Based on
George?
original.
Yes.
George?
Yes, yes,
There's something wrong with your line. I'm going to have to call you back.
Oh, dear.
Okay?
That's better. All right, do that. Thanks.
Just seems like I was here yesterday. I was. My fellow Americans, you can misunderestimate me if you will, but do not misunderestimate George Galloway and his mother of all talk shows. It always has controversial ideas and sometimes very big words like, my fellow Americans. Enjoy the show.
And George Galloway is back.
I'm back, and I hope not sounding like Mickey Mouse. That's the last thing in the whole world I'd like to sound like. I don't know if we're experiencing some technical interference or political interference. Who knows? There's enough conspiracy theories going around. Anyway, my number's 212-209-2900, and I was talking to a gentleman that I hope is still on the line. Are you there, sir?
Martin Broad, yes.
Yes, Martin. I was talking to you about the old saw of if you want to make money, don't rob a bank, open one. And these people have looted, using their imaginary money, numbers on a screen, casino economics, producing nothing that can be described as real wealth of any use to anyone except the people that are playing the game. And, of course, they became too big to fail. And the taxpayer, who didn't have any money or nothing appreciable in the way of money, was forced to bail them out in hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, and it still hasn't fixed the problem.
Well, I certainly agree, and it's certainly all within the power of the administration since they control the Justice Department. And if indeed they were spending a little more time getting after the fraudsters that are perpetrating all this criminal activity, instead of putting as much effort as they are, it seems, in fighting some Mexicans coming across the border.
Well, exactly, Martin. I'll tell you what we have here. We have a big campaign going here called Shop a Benefit Scrounger. You can inform the authorities anonymously on a dedicated phone line about the woman next door who's really got a boyfriend but is claiming to be a single parent, and thereby getting a few pounds a week in benefits to which she's not entitled. You find these posters everywhere in Britain. Yet, in the square mile, the City of London, the richest square mile on the earth, we have people stealing billions. And they never seem to face justice, and they certainly never seem to have the law enforcement agencies going after them with the same gusto that the woman next door is having to experience. Martin, thanks very much for that first call. My apologies for the interference. Aoife, do we have another call?
Yes, you do. You actually have Richard from Manhattan.
Okay, Richard in Manhattan, welcome to the show, my friend.
Actually, it's not on yet.
Richard, are you there?
Oh, now I'm having problems with the phones. I don't know what's going on.
We're having some difficulties with the phones, so let me just wax lyrical.
Here it goes. Richard?
Yes,
Richard,
ma'am.
you're on the air.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Richard. You're on the air.
Okay, first I'd like to say you got a wonderful show, George. You're a wonderful person.
Thank you, Frank.
Now, I just wanted to touch on the subject of Libya before they get entirely thrown from the news.
Yeah.
I was a member of the Teamster Union for 25 years. At one point, the president of the union, who was caught dipping into the funds, was forced out.
Yeah.
However, as a member of the union, I did not care particularly if he was dipping into the funds to some degree, because I was getting good benefits, I'm going to have a good retirement, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Now, in Libya, people are living under Gaddafi to the age of 77, which is the highest in the African continent and probably the highest in any state in the Muslim world. Now, after NATO goes in there and they privatize the place, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and workers are going to be hurt, and the secular state is going to be not so secular, and the rent is going to be charged, and the school is going to be charged, and all the benefits of the socialist, whatever kind of socialist, in quotes, economy that was running there are going to be evaporated. And I'd like to see how long the Libyans are living in another 10 years. I know it's not going to be as long as they were living under Gaddafi.
Well, I mean, that's true, Richard. All of that is true as far as it goes, but it doesn't go far enough, because there's a number of problems with the equation that you've outlined for us. It's true, but it's not the whole truth. First of all, if you are an opponent of the political system of Gaddafi, you didn't live 77 years. You'd be lucky to live 77 days after you'd been picked up. We know that because some of the people now in power in Libya after the revolution were themselves captives in Guantanamo Bay and illegally rendered to Gaddafi's torture chambers, where they were tortured literally with electric shocks, with British and American intelligence agents sitting maybe outside, maybe not, jotting down the answers that the men were giving under the torture. Or you could just disappear, or you could be assassinated, or you could be driven into exile, as hundreds of thousands of Libyans were. Secondly, you're right about the life expectancy and about the free benefits that the people in Libya had, but again, that's not the whole truth. You see, Libya had a population of 2 million people when Gaddafi took power, more than 40 years before his defenestration. And in 40 years, that population grew from 2 million to 6 million, but every Libyan should have been a multi-millionaire, because the amount of oil and gas revenue generated under the Gaddafi decades was such that you could have just distributed on a per capita basis enough to make every Libyan the richest man and woman, more or less, anywhere. But that didn't happen, and anyone who's ever been in Libya, as I have many times, can see that the public realm, which should have looked like Dubai or Manhattan, didn't look anything like that. It looked like Upper Volta, looked like Africa. And the private merits were very much short of what they should have been too. For example, Libyans could not go to university in Libya because there weren't any decent universities in Libya, despite 40 years of oil and gas revenue. If they were sick, they went abroad to foreign hospitals to be treated. Now, it's true that they were given money in those foreign universities and foreign hospitals to pay for their education and their treatment, but they ought to have been able to get that at home. So I shed no tears for the Gaddafi regime. I don't believe that they have been replaced by people better than them, and you may be right that they will turn out to have been replaced by people worse than them. But we mustn't paint Gaddafi as if he was Guevara. Gaddafi was not Che Guevara, believe me. Richard, thanks for the call. 212-209-2900 is the number to join the great debate here on the Mother of All Talk Shows. Aoife, do we have a third call?
Yes, we have Peter from Manhattan.
Yeah.
Peter in Manhattan, welcome to the show, my friend. Go ahead.
Thank you. You answered your own question when you asked about the Occupation Wall Street protesters. and they, there's a myth that they have no direction. They don't even know what they want to do. But you said yourself that they have inspired other people across this country and probably the world. So that's a great thing. And not only that, there hasn't been outcry since, I guess, the 60s and the early 70s. So I really welcome them. And they're brilliant people. They are brilliant young people. I don't like Bloomberg, but he has a magazine called Bloomberg Business, I believe it is. And he has an article about the Wall Street protesters. Is neither against or for the protesters. Very good, though. And it compliments the protesters. It's a sad thing. It's a sad thing that's going on, though. And I believe Bloomberg and the police and whoever else are sending the dregs of society down there. And I'm not talking about homeless people who, as a result of not having capacity to do better for themselves. But I'm talking about these people that you and I wouldn't want to meet on the street, and that's sad. Yeah. It's a sad thing. But I don't. Well,
that's happening in London also.
Yeah,
there's a lot of sad cases out there. I wouldn't call them dregs myself, but they are sad.
No, I understand the sad cases.
They are sad, and some of them are mad, and they're of course attracted to camps and sit-ins and performances.
It's open.
Such as these.
When that happened, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. This is the mother of all talk shows with me, George Galloway.
Fighting the golden flakes of change with the milk of human kindness. This is the mother of all talk shows, and George Galloway.
Mr. President, that made no sense whatsoever.
I know. That's why I said it.
Indeed. That's the class of the people that are governing us, if you ask me. We did get a glimpse, though, in the week of what President Obama really thinks, which must have made surely somebody in America think, well, if you think that about Netanyahu, why don't you tell us? Why do you whisper it to a foreign leader thinking that no one's recording it? Why do you continue to give American taxpayers dollars in the billions to a state run by Benjamin Netanyahu when you think what you obviously do think about him? That's one of the subjects I'm talking about today, and I'm talking about the occupations which continue apace. I don't know how they're spreading in the United States, but I do know that in Oakland, California last week, they really made the earth move. So tell me, I want your calls on 212-209-2900. Aoife, do we have a fourth call?
Yes, Bernard from Brooklyn.
Bernard, welcome back to the show, my friend. Go ahead.
Mr. Galloway, it's Bernard. My name is Bernard White. Not the same personality on BAI. Same name, different person.
All right, my friend. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, that other, I'm in America. The other Bernard White's in Havana, Cuba. Where you belong, you...
My goodness. These people keep running away. I wish they would come on and have an argument. That's what that fellow wanted to do, but he didn't have the cojones to do it. But let me tell you something about Havana, Cuba, Bernard, the other Bernard. Let me tell you that in Havana, Cuba, life expectancy is greater than it is in Washington, D.C. Go figure. In Havana, Cuba, infant mortality, that is the number of small babies dying before they reach a year old, is less than it is in Washington, D.C. If you're sick in Havana, Cuba, you'll get the best medical treatment available anywhere in the world and entirely free of charge. And your children will go to kindergarten and will go to school and will go to university and can even study for a PhD entirely free of charge and will get a school lunch and a university lunch entirely free of charge. So I don't know how much you really know about Havana, Cuba, and to say that I belong there as if it were an insult to me or as if it were something that I would dread, let me tell you, as I look out at the grey, leaden London sky, I wish I was in Havana, Cuba right now. And if you knew any more about it than you obviously do, so would you. Aoife, do we have a fifth call?
Yes, you have Nick from Seacliff.
Nick in Seacliff. Welcome to the show, my friend.
George, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. I've spoken to you in the past. I'm retired law enforcement.
Oh, yes, I remember, Nick. Yes, go ahead, sir.
I'm also, I want to make this very clear. I am part Jewish on my mother's side of my family. Regarding Israel, this is a country that not only occupies the Palestinian people. Let's let's be entitled to facts and not our own opinions. We cannot create our own facts. Israel has received billions upon billions of dollars since its formation May 14th, 1948, at the expense of the Palestinian people and the murders that have been committed by the Israelis. But you see, the Jewish people don't want to admit this. They also don't want to admit the USS Liberty, where the Israeli military killed 34 U.S. sailors. It has been documented. No congressional inquiry. So there is a double standard when it comes to the coddled Israel. Unfortunately, that's the facts, and that's exactly what...
Well, it is, Nick, and it's very good that you said what you said and the way that you said it also. The truth, though, is that Obama, as we know from his conversation with Sarkozy last week, thinks exactly the same thing. The problem is he's continuing to arm and pay for every crime that Netanyahu is carrying out. And not only that, when UNESCO, the United Nations agency, had the temerity to admit the existence of Palestine and admit it into membership the week before, Obama promptly withdrew the United States funding of $60 million from UNESCO. Now, we're trying to make that up. We're trying to build some sports facilities for the Palestinian people in Gaza. If you want to help that, you can go to the website www.vivapalestina.org. I hope that people will do that before the end of the show or shortly afterwards. Nick, great call, my friend. I couldn't have put it better than you, and I won't try to. Aoife, do we have another call?
Yes, you do. You actually have Alan from Manhattan.
Alan in Manhattan, welcome to the show, my friend. Go ahead.
Hi, George.
Hi.
First of all, I'd like to say that I really admire your courage and the fact that you're one of the very few people that stands for the truth and justice, and God bless you for that.
Thank you, my friend.
Two questions. I am driving, so I'm going to ask and then listen to you.
Okay.
I forgot to say, I really do care about your view about the politics as well, your knowledge, etc. Netanyahu again is barking that he's going to bomb Iran again. So I wanted to hear your thoughts about that. And second question is, every time we occupy a country, we never seem to pull out ever again. It seems like it's just another empty promise when we say we're going to pull out of Iraq and Afghanistan. Do you agree with that or not? So
well,
I'll listen.
I do, Alan, and again, a terrific call. It's clear that they're being kicked out of Iraq. The British withdrew, and the United States are being kicked out by the Iraqi people that they said they had come to liberate, and I'm very glad about that. However, what's happening now is displacement activity. The United States is not going to give up its huge bases in Iraq lightly. They have to be replaced elsewhere, and they will be replaced in the dictatorships around about Iraq, the dictatorship of Saudi Arabia, the dictatorship in Qatar, the dictatorship in the United Arab Emirates, none of which have any democracy or liberty in their countries at all, but have huge U.S. presence. In the case of Qatar, the biggest U.S. military base anywhere in the world. And in Bahrain, which is effectively just a U.S. military base, where the dictatorship is murdering the people out on the streets, demanding democracy, they are going to thicken their military presence there, and they're going to take to the seas of the Gulf and patrol that Gulf in a way that can only lead to war. And it's war that they're now discussing. They're openly talking, not in the United States, it would appear, but in the international media, in The Guardian, and in the Israeli press, in Haaretz, the best of the Israeli newspapers. They're openly discussing an imminent attack on Iran because they say Iran is trying to build a nuclear weapon. Now, I don't know if Iran is trying to build a nuclear weapon or not. They say that they are not. There seems no evidence that they are. But hey, there was no evidence of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq before we illegally invaded and occupied it. So this is a very, very dangerous moment, not least because Iran is no pushover. Iran is no punch bag. If Iran is attacked, it will answer. And it will answer, first of all, in occupied Iraq, where, as an inevitable consequence of the destruction of the previous regime in Iraq, Iran has become vastly more powerful. And believe me, if you ever saw the film Zulu, if you ever saw the Zulus up on the hill, surrounding the English soldiers in their red coats, that's what that's going to look like in Iraq. And the people who will be behind the stockade, hoping that there are enough sandbags to protect them, will be the American occupation soldiers, the poor, bloody infantry, conscripted into the United States military by poverty and poverty of possibility of achievement in any other field other than in the U.S. military. But they'll answer also in the Gulf. And so if you think petrol is expensive now, wait till you see the price after we've attacked Iran, because Iran will respond against those satrapies, those dictatorships that are producing oil and which are no more than hired potentates for the imperial system. And Iran has friends all over the world who will not accept days and days of military bombardment of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So I wrote recently, you can read it on my Facebook page, be afraid, be very afraid of the consequences of what these lunatics are planning to do. They may not be discussing it openly and widely in the United States media, but I can assure you that we've now moved on to a state of red alert in this regard. Thanks very much, Alan, for that call. Let's take another from Ife. Go ahead.
You have Jeremiah from Queens.
Jeremiah
Hello,
in Queens, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, pleasure to talk with you again, Mr. Galloway. There's so many things I'd like to discuss with you, but I want to discuss the Occupy Wall Street movement, since it's obviously something that's, very now. Yeah. And, I've been an activist all my life, and I don't want to criticize anybody who's standing up and speaking out against injustice or speaking of the hidden truths that are, hidden in plain sight and so on. I want to criticize the movement from the point of view of somebody who really wants to see it grow and really wants to see this critical moment seized.
Yeah.
And I'm an artist myself. I love music. I love the arts.
Yeah.
But, when people get together, it often takes on a creative, artistic component. And, it just kind of bothers me that, and I don't want to criticize everybody because I'm sure there's some people who are very tactical and some people who write, poetry and song. But all the poetry in the world is not going to stop the warmongers of the world, the people who are pillaging our system economically. It kind of bothers me, at rallies when we have chants like, whose streets? Our streets. It's like, well, they're not your streets, because that's the whole point. There's a private property system. I'm not a big fan. I'm a chess player, and I'm actually a chess teacher. And one of the things of chess is that you have to learn the difference between planning and dreaming. And there's too much kind of, pepping ourselves up. I don't need to be pepped up. I want decisive action. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy to determine exactly what those actions are going to be, but let's just deal with reality. I don't need any more pats on the back. I want to deal with just reality. How do we stop these people from exploiting? How do we stop these people from killing? And there's
this call is solid gold, Jeremiah. I wish I could put it in a can and send it around the world. I feel exactly the same as you do, right down to the love of music. I agreed with everything that you said, and it is a problem. I told you about the media having really turned on to this St. Paul's Cathedral protest, Occupy, in central London.
Right.
But there's exactly the same phenomenon. There's a kind of throwback to the hippie days where everything was ideology light, politics light, feel good, talking about love and peace, whilst our countries were dealing out death and destruction around the world, and practicing an economic and political system that spelled out the word death, meant death, even when there's no war. Capitalism means death. It means death because of the inequality that it must ineluctably embrace and engineer. And so I agree with everything that you said. But we have to...
I'm sorry, go on.
Go on.
I was going to say that there was a recent mock trial of Goldman Sachs on BAI. I didn't catch it. I'll go back in the archives to try to listen to as much BAI as possible. But I caught portions of it actually, and I caught the promo for it. And it's like, if you're going to do that sort of thing, like a mock trial, well, admit that you're doing theater. But don't go and say you're going to carry out a trial and no one's getting arrested. That's exactly the point. We don't have the problem to grab these people.
True.
So let's go through theater.
That's true, Jeremiah. But we must be grateful for small mercies. And BAI,
I think it's wonderful. But let's just acknowledge that it's theater. Is all I'm asking.
Well, yeah, you and I are definitely mutually acknowledging that. Many of the listeners will be. But the task is to make this challenge to the prevailing orthodoxy, this neoliberal economics and imperialism abroad, to expand that challenge from you and me plus the others listening here, to the masses in the country and in the world. And we have to acknowledge, you and I, having been lifelong activists, that our methods failed. We didn't challenge neoliberal economics, and we didn't challenge imperialism. Both are still flourishing, at least they're still in power in the world. And we do have a moment here. You're right to be anxious about not losing that moment. But we must so conduct ourselves in our discourse with others as to persuade them that they need to go farther and they need to think more profoundly, more deeply about the society that they are challenging. But let's at least be glad, as you are and I am, that they are challenging it. And the rest will grow, I hope. Okay, Jeremiah, that was a fantastic call. I really appreciate that. Ife, do we have another?
Yes, you have Ensarara from Glen Oaks, New York.
Ensarara, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you very much, George. How are you today?
Very well, thanks. I'm glad to be talking to New York again on a weekly basis.
Okay, rather interesting. I've always said the universe always seems to work correctly. I very much agree and probably want to tag on to the last caller. I, too, am very pessimistic about what's going on. I am one of those people, perhaps like yourself and the other caller, who definitely believes that if there are 1 million pebbles on the beach or 1 million clams that are drying up, I still will pick up that pebble, so someone else doesn't, one pebble, so someone else doesn't, trip, and I'll take the clam and throw it in the water because I've helped that one, and I'll still do that. Again, asking you, I guess, real specifically, and I think you kind of answered this with the last person, about your pessimism. One more, kind of truism. They say a godlike technology cannot exist with a Faustian morality. And I'm just curious as to, how you feel or what you feel specifically we can do, except for just continuing to do what we're doing with, for example, the stuff we already know, that global warming and pollution and air, and how do we stop Homo sapiens from killing one another, which we seem to do, and on a very specific level, this thing called the super committee, which is going on. And I guess my question is, to me, it looking like it's, like 1 million pebbles on the beach, what can we do? I would say, and maybe I'm answering my own question, along with our pessimism, it's like, okay, I'm pessimistic, but I won't stop, working for the world that
that is it. That's what we have to do in the current climate. Another fantastic call, I may say. You mentioned pessimism. I follow the rubric of Antonio Gramsci, the great Italian revolutionary whose watchword was optimism of the will and pessimism of the intellect. I have a duty to scientifically calibrate where we are. But I also have a duty to return to the fray every day, which I do. I spend my day talking. Yesterday I was talking to 300 kids in a school in England. We do still have some schools that will let someone like me come along and address their students. I'm on the Facebook every day opining. I'm doing 2 radio shows a week, 2 television shows a week. I'm speaking at public meetings. I'm inexhaustible, believe me. I say this to my enemies out there. I am inexhaustible. You will never exhaust me. Indeed, I'll always try to make you tired. But at the same time, I have to be realistic about where we are, what slogans we can raise, what specific goals we can reach in the current level of consciousness in the country and the world. And the one good thing that we have to acknowledge is that we now have a widely discredited model of economics. It's discredited in the United States, it's discredited in the United Kingdom, it's discredited in the continent of Europe. And whilst some people may be falling in love with it in the eastern parts of the world, the people in the western parts in the world and the northern parts of the world are rapidly falling out of love with it. That doesn't mean we can stop it, or we can transform it, or we can change it to something better, but it's a necessary, though insufficient, condition. So let's enjoy the discrediting of the system that we have long agitated against, and keep up our agitation and our organizing and our educating to try and make people generalize from the specifics against which they are currently ranged. That's my point of view. This is the mother of all talk shows.
There are known knowns. There are known unknowns. Garden knowns. But there are also unknown unknowns. Here's one of them. George Galloway with his mother of all talk shows.
Well, I don't know how unknown that unknown is. I'm hoping that more and more people are turning on to it in New York and in the tri-state area. That will do for starters. 212-209-2900 to join this great debate. Aoife, do we have another caller?
Yes, we have Cal from Rockland Center, Long Island.
Cal in Long Island, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, how are you, George?
I'm well, thanks. Good to be back.
It's a pleasure to talk to you again.
Thanks, sir.
I'm a Palestinian American. I was born in Jordan. We immigrated here about 30, 40 years ago. And unfortunately, I had a great hope in Obama, as most people did around the world.
So did I, Cal. I'm embarrassed about it.
And I believe that what's going to happen with Obama is going to be very similar to Jimmy Carter in the sense that he will champion the Palestinian cause after he's out of office, and sees if anybody he knows, because he's been closest to our what's been happening to our condition.
Edward Said taught him everything that he knows about Palestine.
That's right.
Late and great.
That's right.
Columbia professor. Yeah, he knows. He doesn't have the excuse that the last guy did of being an idiot. Bush thought that the Sinai was the plural of sinus. But Obama knows everything about Palestine, and it's clear from the captured conversation with Sarkozy that he's even ready to share that with foreign statesmen. But he doesn't share it with the American voters, and he doesn't stop the American voters being forced to give billions of dollars every year to your oppression.
That's right. And going back to Jeremiah's point with the caller, I think 2 callers back, about just the whole thing of world peace, which, we all would love to see that. Us, the Arabs, if anybody, would love to have that. I mean, look, since the Industrial Revolution, we've had nothing but war. We've had bad dictators. I mean, we're sick of it. We'd love to progress and move forward in this world and just have, basically economic prosperity, because that's what you get.
But there are things that we could do, Carl, that we're not doing, and that are within our power to do. I gave you one, our attempt to create 3 sports grounds in Gaza where there are none, where the young people, 80% of whom are unemployed, have nowhere to play football, to run, to throw javelins, all the things that people in rich countries like ours are able to do, they can't do under siege in Gaza. People can help that. Even with $10, they can buy a square meter of these three football stadia, and they'll get their name on a brick on the wall for just $10. And people can do that at vivapalestina.org. You're in New York. There must be thousands of Muslims and Christians from the Arab world and from the wider Islamic world who own shops and stores. During Ramadan, were they selling Israeli dates? I bet a lot of them were. Are they stocking Israeli products? Are they even stocking products from the occupied Palestinian lands since 1967? The answer, if it's anything like London, is almost certainly yes. But we have to reach them. Some of them have collecting boxes for the local mosque or the local Islamic charity on the counter of their shop at the same time as they're selling fruit and vegetables and dates from Israel in the same store. There's blood on those oranges. There's blood on those dates. Stop selling them. Sell Palestinian products instead. We can boycott. We can fight for the disinvestment in this crime of our pension fund, of our universities' funds, of our workplaces' resources. We can fight for boycott of this great crime. There are many things that each individual listening to this can do. Carl, thanks for the call. Do we have any others on the line, Ife?
Yes, you do. You actually have Ahmed he's a cab driver. He's driving right now, but he pulled over.
Ahmed, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hello?
Yes, Ahmed, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Actually, this is Brett. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Brett
okay.
from Brooklyn.
It's okay. I've made a few mistakes myself. Mr. Galloway, it's a real privilege. I want to go back to the occupation of Occupy Wall Street. It's been such a sensation, and everybody's going, it's worldwide, everybody's going, well, what are the demands and all that? And since they do vote like on a consensus thing, I had a novel idea. Someone gave me a music box that plays Imagine, the John Lennon song Imagine.
Yes.
And I play it as a music box in my ear, and then, write down, okay, what's my opinion? And I have the moment there at the Occupy Wall Street at Zuccotti Park to voice my opinion on the soapbox, or even possibly get it into the General Assembly as a question, where do we go next? And since everybody has an opinion, in America, everybody has an opinion. Give somebody a few beers and they got 20 opinions. But by the way, I think you are really fantastic. I want to flatter your ego, of course. But I really admire you. I got to meet you once, and I still remember. And that was some time ago. But
fabulous, Brett. Well, I hope to be back soon. I hope to give another lecture in the Ethical Society soon to raise some funds for WBAI. So I hope to meet you again, my friend.
Well, chances are. It's like, and then I have a stay down there. I know it sounds hokey, but imagine what would I like to see happen? Okay, then everybody gets a chance to, see what they'd like to see happen.
Well, we could do worse than have a world like John Lennon imagined. I called one of my books "I'm Not the Only One," and I'm not the only one. You're another.
Oh, well, I'm a dreamer, of course, and first you dream. I'm an actor, and that's it was a slogan that first you dream, and then the dream comes reality. And speaking of Havana, they've got a statue of John Lennon up there down there, don't they?
Indeed, they do. And Fidel apologized for banning the Beatles in the 1960s.
Well, people do.
I had a conversation with Fidel Castro about this very subject.
Oh, you lucky man, you. Lucky man.
By the grace of God. Thanks, Brad, for the call.
Okay.
Do we have any others?
Yes, this is Ahmed, the cab driver.
Ahmed, welcome to the show, my friend.
No, you're welcome back. It's such an honor to speak to you because you're one of my great heroes, and I've been, a big advocate of you personally. Because
thanks, brother. Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Alexandria, Egypt, and I've been living in the States for the past 20 years.
I'm going back in triumph to Egypt very soon after Mubarak deported me and declared me persona non grata. Now he's in a prison cell waiting for his just desserts. So congratulations to you and all the Egyptians.
Actually, congratulations to all the Egyptians because I was over here and I haven't done anything except to talk about it, and I was so happy, and I have such a great admiration for the young people of Egypt.
Well, they showed what can be done, yeah?
Oh, absolutely. But
even the biggest tyrants can fall if the people decide in sufficient numbers to bring them down, and that's what happened. First to the Shah of Persia, then to Mubarak, and there will be other pharaohs that will come tumbling down, Ahmed.
Absolutely. And I wish, the American people, can hear what you're saying, because they are long overdue with Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
Because the people should have taken to the streets long time ago, started from
we're late. The Americans are usually late for great historic events, but they do make a difference when they arrive, I can assure you. Ahmed, thanks very much for the call. Ife, do we have another?
Yes, Cornelia from NYC.
Cornelia, welcome to the show.
Yeah, hi. I just want to, very briefly, in relation to the potential, the threat of bombing Iran, I think you should explain to people a little bit about Dimona.
Yeah, I will.
It's a very important thing. A lot of people may not even know about it, and it's just such an outrage that people should know that. Thank you.
Let me talk about it for a moment, and a great call, a great cue, Cornelia. Dimona is the place in Israel where there are 300 nuclear weapons, undeclared, illegally acquired, subject to no inspection or regulation by any international agency. Unlike Iran, which doesn't have any nuclear weapons, which is a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which is regularly inspected, which allows foreigners to come and make the kind of analyses which they have made and are now reporting this week to the International Atomic Energy Agency. There will never be an IAEA inspection of Israel's illegally acquired nuclear weapons, which they acquired with the help of Britain and France and the United States of America. And these rockets are pointed at every Arab capital and at Iran. But nobody is demanding even that they open the doors so that these rockets can be counted. Never mind that these rockets should be destroyed. The whole of the Middle East should be a nuclear-free zone. There are far too many conflicts in the Middle East to have nuclear weapons. But why should Israel be allowed to have nuclear weapons pointed at everyone else, but anyone else who's even suspected of seeking to acquire nuclear weapons has to be attacked, invaded, sanctioned, occupied? It just doesn't make any logical sense. Even before you start to say, how come Britain is allowed to have nuclear weapons? How come France? How come America is allowed to have thousands of nuclear weapons? Why are some countries allowed to have nuclear weapons whilst others are not? So we only know about Dimona because the brave Israeli whistleblower, Mordechai Vanunu, an Israeli Jew at the time, since changed his religion, came to London and gave us the pictures that proved the existence of these nuclear weapons. At that time there were 200, now there are 300 nuclear weapons in Dimona. And the idea that Israel can attack Iran, which doesn't have nuclear weapons, for the dream maybe one day of having them, whilst Israel has 300 illegal nuclear weapons, is just logically absurd, quite apart from being politically disastrous. Cornelia, thanks for the opportunity to say that. Let's try and squeeze a few more in. Ife, do we have any others?
Yes, you have Hugo from Clinton, New Jersey.
Hugo, the first call from New Jersey. I'm really disappointed we're not getting more calls from New Jersey, where I have a lot of friends. Hugo, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. My wife and I love your show. We saw you at the Ethical Society. I'm a high school teacher. I teach history, and I try to, at least in my young students, create a situation where I make them think. Because I got to tell you, we live in a state of dissonance. I mean, when Chomsky was bringing these subjects up back in the 60s with the Vietnam War, I mean, little by little, you see that we live in a situation where, for example, going back to the Sarkozy and Obama situation, how can it be that our president states that, hey, I got to live with this guy every day? How can it be that less than 15% of the population has such disparate, incredible power politically, and yet we cannot even address it openly in the media? I mean, as a history teacher, that creates a situation where I become a walking lie if I don't tell the kids the truth, and yet I'm under such political pressure myself in the school system that as long as I talk about the Holocaust, everything's okay. But if I go anywhere else, I mean, people can come and ask for my lesson plans.
Amazing. Hugo, I'm almost speechless. Another great call here on the Mother of All talk shows. All I can say is to bring some ray of sunshine to that rather melancholy story is that more people know than have ever known before. And that's because the great moguls who used to control all the media now only control most of it. I've got 16,500 videos on YouTube. Not one of them I put there myself. Other people that I have never met put them up. And people can type my name and look at these 16,500, and tens of millions of people have done so. I told you earlier about the 125,000 people following, and that's just me on Twitter and Facebook. If you go to the internet now, there's no excuse for not knowing the truth, and more people do know the truth. So we're living in a period where we're assembling a critical mass which one day will set off that chain reaction that critical masses always do, talking nuclear talk. Hugo in New Jersey, thanks a lot. Tell people in New Jersey we need more listeners and callers from your great state. Thanks for that. Aoife, let's try and squeeze in maybe one more.
Yes, Rabbi Weiss from right here in New York.
Hallelujah. Rabbi Weiss, always great to hear from you, brother.
Thank you, and it's always for us a pleasure because we know that with God's help, God is protecting you to send out the truth. Always differentiating between the what Zionism wants to confuse, that this is a religious conflicts, and therefore we're protecting the Judaism and Jewish religion by standing up against our enemies, the Arabs and the Muslims and so forth in Iran. And what they're doing is, unfortunately, from day one, they putting the world into this terrible into a terrible position, a danger that there's no words to describe. And just we always like to reiterate that Rabbi Dushinsky, the chief rabbi of Palestine, in 1947 pleaded with the Secretary General of the United Nations that we are the indigenous people of Palestine, and the Jews around the world who refuse to accept the concept of Zionism, which is not Judaism. It's just a transformation to a political movement, and that we do not want a state in any part of Palestine. This is what Rabbi Dushinsky, the chief rabbi, pleaded. So it's not only Netanyahu, who's the present prime minister, but it's the ongoing occupation, illegitimate, according to the Jewish belief, according to the Torah, the illegitimate banishment of the Palestinian people, and all the terrible things that they're doing. Now they're putting the ongoing river of bloodshed is the root cause of this is squarely in the court of Zionism, that they've caused the animosity and mistrust of Jews. Jews have been living in Muslim and Arab countries as they are in Iran till today, and been protected and given the greatest respect, and they've flourished in Arab countries. And now, today, we are seeing this terrible danger that the next step that Netanyahu wants to bring bloodshed, God forbid, to the whole world. We plead with the world. We're not pleading with Netanyahu because this is illegitimate. It is a rogue and evil, and it's a thieving entity that you don't deal with them. We're pleading with the world to stop not only actually this danger that they're trying to cause now, but the whole the occupation that is in its root is illegitimate, and we oppose around the world.
I'll tell you what, Rabbi, I couldn't have dreamt of a better call to finish the show. And I really appreciate it very, very much indeed.
Keep up your good work and speak for us all with God's help.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who listened, and bring somebody else along with you next week. This has been London Calling.
And I don't want to shout, but while we were talking, I saw you nodding out. London Calling, see, we ain't got no hide, except for that one with the yellowy eyes. The ice is coming, the sun's zooming in, engines stuck on it, the wheat is going